It's time for this week's episode of Brandon's Sports Talk.
Welcome back to Brandon's Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Morehead State head women's golf coach, Stephanie Barker. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into college coaching on the women's golf side?
Well, that's a funny question for me because I actually didn't want to get into it. And when I began playing professionally, it just seemed like I had some opportunities that came up and I kept saying like, oh God, no, I would never, never do that, And I think by about the third time someone asked me, I know it was University of Colorado Springs wanted to start a program. And I was very young. I want to say I was like 24, 25 years old and didn't have a clue. And I just thought that would be an awful thing to get into. And then a couple other conversations down the road were entertaining. But, my experience as a player was wonderful. I loved my coach. I loved competing. But there were some dynamics when I played, whereas when I was a freshman, everyone else were seniors. And so by my sophomore year, everyone else on the team were freshmen. And that was kind of, I took on the leadership role and attempted to guide. And I was probably a little bit of a vocal leader, but more of a leader by example at that point because I was a sophomore, but I also had seniority. And so in my mind, looking back, I felt like that year was like herding cats, it was just a mess. And that's kind of what I thought about coaching. I thought, oh gosh, if I tried to lead these young women, it would be like herding cats. So originally it was no, I was not interested whatsoever. I wanted to play. I enjoyed competing and teaching. And then as I navigated that side of the golf career, an opportunity came up at Cal State Northridge. And I was like, you know what the heck? I really need to start making more money because either, not being entirely broke or putting a couple thousand into your IRA at that point was probably an inspiration to get into coaching. So you know what, maybe I'll check this out. And year by year two into it, I just absolutely loved it. And that was what I decided to do.
What was your playing time like playing golf at Oklahoma State?
Well, I was fortunate. Again, I didn't entirely expect that I was going to play in every tournament because coming in as a freshman, you just don't know. Here's all these seniors. And but I was fortunate. I qualified right off the bat and played. I played in 44 events while I was there and played in all of them. And I think I was okay as a freshman, but probably about halfway through my sophomore year, started to really be a contender, nationally recognized, and ended up having, I think it was like 23 top 10s out of 44 starts and handful. I think I won 5 tournaments and I don't know, it was a good college career.
What was that feeling like of putting on that Oklahoma State polo jersey? Polo.
Oh, there we go. Yes, most of the teams went to the same events, and I was very proud to be representing Oklahoma State.
What was the feeling like of going to the national championship all 4 years?
Well, it's definitely more exciting when your team gets to go. So 2 of the 4 years, our team qualified, and 2 of the 4 years, I qualified individually. And it's exciting, but it's definitely a lot better experience to be there with your team. And it's like I said, there were a handful of great programs, and we saw each other all the time. But the national championship is just that next level.
Of course, coming out of college, what was it like getting into professional golf and playing on the LPGA?
Well, that I didn't really know that I wanted to play professionally. I really didn't have a clue. I knew I wanted to play in college. I felt like my goals were a little bit short term, which was good for me because I'd be like, hey, what do I want to accomplish this year? What do I want to accomplish this semester, this month, this day, this week? And probably about halfway through my junior year, I was winning tournaments, and I think going into April, going into the national championship, I didn't even know this until I was showing my son, he competes too, a newspaper article that my mom had clipped, and we were reading it, and I had no idea, but I was ranked second in the country my junior year. And because you know how easy rankings are to find now, and scoring averages and all this stuff. So here's this newspaper article, and I'm reading it, and I was like, oh, wow, maybe you'll listen to me now. I wasn't ranked first, but I was ranked second. So my junior year, doing that well as a junior kind of made me start thinking like, maybe you would want to do this as a professional. And I really didn't realize I was going to qualify right out of college, because that's pretty difficult to do. But the first qualifying tournament, qualified, got to play on tour, and promptly lost my card, which is not that rare. But then ended up getting full status on the European tour as well. So I played here in the States, I played over in Europe, and then I feel like I played on almost every tour, developmental tour, trying to, get my card back on the LPGA. But, you're proud of your accomplishments. You feel like a good player. But obviously, I was a 2-time All-American, which I'm proud of, but everyone's a 2-time All-American. Everyone's won tournaments. Everyone, is so exceptional. And there's a bit of a learning curve there for sure.
How was it like playing in the U.S. Women's Open in '93?
Let's see. I think I played in the U.S. Open in '95 and then '97. So '95 was at the Broadmoor at Colorado Springs, and then I believe it was 1997. I played. I would have to double check, but the U.S. Open was Kohler, Wisconsin at Black Wolf Run, and the USGA. I mean, they're the real deal. So they set up the courses very long. When I was playing on the LPGA, I was probably middle of the road distance wise. And the LPGA would set up the courses for middle of the road, just kind of average distance, where I think the USGA on the women's side set the courses up very long. So it was quite handy to be a longer player. Just tough, par is good. At USGA events, par is not good at LPGA events. But it's I think my second US Open, that one, I want to say there were 60,000 fans. And that one was definitely a learning experience for me, because I remember being on the first tee the first day, and I was looking down the fairway about ready to tee off, and everyone was leaning out. So, there was like one head. So there's thousands of people, and it just looked like this really skinny landing area based on people leaning out so they could see. And I had the hardest time focusing, because I thought, oh my gosh, if I barely miss this, like, I'm just going to nail someone in the face. And so I'd never had that experience before. And and got it together, got into a good high performance state and nailed my first tee shot, and the rest, I was good to go after that point. But my heart was like in my throat. I had never seen so many TV cameras and so many people, and it was a really neat experience for me.
Of course, after your LPGA playing time, what was it like getting into college coaching?
Um, I kind of jumped right in. Initially, I had actually gotten my name out that I was interested in becoming an assistant coach, because I realized I really didn't know anything about college coaching. It had been, I graduated 93. At this point, it had been, 6 years, and 5 years, I guess. And I knew things had changed, totally different type of career. You can be very narcissistic as a playing professional, and your world revolves around you. And, as a coach, hopefully you're not like that. Not going to last very long in the industry. But I jumped in, and I kind of just wanted to observe. I took over at Northridge. The coach before me had just taken the job at UCLA, and we had actually played junior golf together. So she was a great contact, a great resource. I could kind of call her, pick her brain, quite try to understand like what the culture was like, what the expectations were, what she had done in the past. But then I also wanted to watch and see, what do I want for this program? What do we want, as a team? And I think I was a little bit shocked in a way, because when I played, we did not have we did, but it didn't change anything. My sophomore year is when some of the NCAA rules went into effect for practice time. So we laughed, when they passed the 20-hour rule. We were like, 20 hours? Like, you can't get anything done in 20 hours. Like, this is a joke, especially in golf, because if you go play, it's going to take you at least 3 to 4 hours to play, depending on how many people are on the course. And then a lot of times we play 36 holes. So now you're talking about 8 hours. So, if you're practicing and playing, you're knocking out and working out, you're knocking out 8 to 10 hours in a day. So 20 hours, like that's nothing. So the 20-hour rule was in effect when I got into coaching. So I kind of wanted to figure out, like, how is this going to work? Like, how do you get any good at your sport like golf in 20 hours? How are these women practicing? And then what are their expectations? And I think when you're coming from being a tour pro, and I had to practice a lot to be good, to be prepared. I watched in what we thought practice was did not match what I knew we needed to do to be good. And fortunately, I had a group that was wonderful. I mean, they put up with me. They were like, okay, coach, like whatever I thought we should do, whatever drills. And looking back, I mean, these kids, these women, I mean, they were exceptional. And I did not know what I was doing, because I started in like August, September, like school had just started, and I jump in and I'm trying to figure this out as we go. But fortunately, they're a great group. They were very understanding of my lack of expertise on the coaching side, but gave me a lot of respect, because I guess I had street cred, as a player. And then I was also, when I was at Northridge, I was also still competing. So I was playing on the European tour. So I could compete on the European tour from April through September. And then I would come back from Europe, and then I would coach. And it was kind of funny, because I remember, now I'm going to date myself, but this is like when faxes were still were still a thing. And I remember being at the scoring table, and I was filling, signing my scorecard and checking my scores. And I was in Italy, and I get this, it's like May, and I get this fax, and they're like, hey, you got a fax from blah, blah, blah. She needs help buying her books. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm in Italy, like, how am I going to help her? So a couple of years of that. I decided that I would go for being a college coach full time.
Of course, during that time, what was it like balancing being a professional athlete as a LPGA and also being a coach?
Well, I mean, I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I think I was, I would practice with the women, and the women that wanted to practice extra, we would practice together, we would work out together. And I really wasn't, I had one lady on the team that was probably 8 years older than me. So it's not like I wasn't much different in age, you're talking about 27, 26, 27. And so that was a lot of fun. And I think I could, on the mental side of things, because that is, being in a high performance state, being able to handle the ups and downs and the emotions and the expectations, and understanding your triggers, individually as a player, like when do you start spiraling down, and those things I was so in touch with because I was also playing. So I think there was a lot of empathy and a lot of conversations on that side of things that were really helpful, because I could come back from a tournament and be like, oh gosh, I did this and I should have done this, or, hey, I handled this so well and this was so helpful for me. And some of those things are going to help, some of your student athletes as well. So
How was it like getting into coaching at Kentucky and being in the SEC?
yeah, I mean so when I was at UK, again, I was pretty young. It was a good learning experience. Again, I kind of jumped in and I wanted to see, like, where are we at as a culture? Where are we at as a team? What are we doing practice wise? And there was a huge gap there as far as, like, unfortunately in Kentucky, you have to be outside playing and practicing when the weather is not good. And so that we weren't doing that. So that was a bit of a curveball. A lot of your best players are going to compete in the winter. They're going to compete during the breaks. They're going to compete in the summer. So we needed to be doing that. So there were a lot of things that culturally, were probably, I think there was a bit of a gap there that I tried to help our students understand, that if we want to compete at this really high level, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes focus. And unfortunately, I think a lot of student athletes, if you want to compete at a high level, you're not going to have the social life that everyone else wants to have. and not everyone, it's not for everyone. Let's put it that way, So I think it was very gratifying to see the women that decided that, hey, I want to give this a shot, and how quickly they improved. And that's what, whenever you take over a program, is kind of what you're trying to do. Is it's like, okay, where are we deficient? How can I help? And how can I help the most in this time that I'm allowed to help these women, and then you're facilitating. The great thing about a place like Kentucky is you have so many people that want to help, from, like the life standpoint and the academics, and if anyone physically needs to be stronger, if they need to be stronger mentally, if they're going through anything, you have so many resources at a place like UK and the SEC. So that is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
What was it like during your time at Kentucky, coaching against Auburn, Georgia, Florida?
Yeah, I think the toughest thing for me at that time was, I felt like Kentucky was a wonderful place, and I felt like Kentucky is a great school. But at that time, trying to recruit against, like, your Floridas and your Georgias and your South Carolinas and women golfers in general, if you're going to stereotype, we tend to do well in class. We tend to graduate, most of our women. And so you also have the academic side of things. So not only are you recruiting against your peers in the SEC, But, I would lose kids to like Wake Forest and North Carolina. And most of the time it was just because of an academic, preference. They just thought that school academically, like a Wake Forest, was going to have a little more prestige, or a Vanderbilt, some of those. So I felt recruiting was a tough thing. The weather always seems to pop up, but there's always something, somewhere. So you just have to be creative and hopefully fundraise, get the facilities that you need. And sometimes you have to be a little more creative with the recruiting. You kind of have to go to opposite ends of the earth to get certain women to come.
How was it like getting the Morehead State job in 2007?
Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, I really, really appreciated so that was the first time that I actually got to begin a program. So I was asked to start the program. I had almost a year to just recruit. And so that was the first time in my coaching career that I was like, oh goodness, I'm not taking over a program. Like, I'm starting a program from the ground up. And so being involved with like helping build facilities, what would benefit our teams, our men's and women teams, building a schedule, recruiting women. I mean, I felt like I got really fat because for every spot that you have, you're bringing in about 3 people. So they wanted me to bring in 10 to 12 women. So I probably brought in about 35 to 40 women that first year on visits. And, all you feel like you're doing is showing them around and eating. So, but I got, for the most part, we had women that really bought into like, hey, we can build something together. Here's our vision, and let's go out and win a conference championship. And so, we built a program, and the next year women came in, and 3 years later, we came home with a conference championship. So that was exciting.
What was that feeling like in 2011, winning that conference championship and going to the NCAA tournament?
It was so exciting. I mean, I think because it took a while to get there. Like, we were good, but we were almost like the other teams in our conference. It's almost like they thought we were cute, if that makes sense. They're like, oh, you guys are so good, like our first year. And I mean, our first year at the OVC conference, we actually started to be in contention. And I noticed that the conversations went from, oh, you're so cute, to all of a sudden no one was really talking to us. And so that was kind of funny. But by that third year into, that's what we worked for so long. And those were the conversations that we had, and that's what we visualized, and that's what we talked about how exciting it would be to like put all this hard work into winning a conference and then going to the regional championships, and hopefully one day chasing down that NCAA championship. So it was really gratifying and wonderful, and all those women keep in touch. All those women bought into something that were bigger than themselves, and they're very proud of the fact that they worked together to win that championship.
What are some of your accomplishments at Morehead?
I mean, I think I'm most proud of the fact that the majority of our women graduate. They graduate with meaningful degrees. They go on to make a ton more money than I do. And most of them are doctors and lawyers and business owners. And, many of them are married now and becoming moms. And so that's the part, the relationships that we've built and the relationships that they built together, how well they're doing in life is probably the most rewarding thing. And to know as a coach that, I had some small part in their journey. And so that's one thing that I'm most proud of. But our team always has a 3.5 GPA or higher. I don't think we've ever dropped down below a 3.5. Most of the time we're like a 3.7 something, which is pretty great when you're talking about pre-med majors and women, that are working hard at their sport. And then, I probably should have listed this out, but I think we've won 9 tournaments as a team the last handful of years. Quite a few. I think almost every year we've had OVC, all OVC players, all OVC newcomers, individual winners of the OVC. And I think we've had 3 of those individually. And a lot of one of our players was ranked in the top 150 nationally. That's a really big deal because, we're going to have a good schedule, but we're not going to get to play against a lot of the women that already have that ranking. And so sometimes you can't get that ranking unless you play against those women that are already ranked, if that makes sense. So it's pretty good when you've got someone that's ranked that high and does that well. And she's a doctor now too. So
Of course, what is it like coaching in the fall and the spring and not having just one season to focus on?
I mean, I love the fall because I'm a planner. And so like we were talking about earlier, the weather in Kentucky can be a little interesting. Once you get into the spring, you can't plan. Sometimes you have to plan for everything. And so the fall is wonderful here. We hardly miss any days. I can put my little calendar together. I know what days we're going to be practicing and playing and which days are off. The spring is we love the spring because we have to travel south. We have to go to Florida. We have to go to South Carolina and North Carolina and all these places that we're hoping are going to be warmer, from February and on. And the spring is a longer season. So I think, you're trying to get ready the best that you can for that conference championship and then hoping that the weather works out and that you're not just going to events and trying to practice while you're at events, So, but I think our women are used to it for the most part. Golf is a year-round sport. They compete. Most of the women that are competing at a high level have probably been competing February, March through about November. And that's pretty similar to what we do at the college level as well.
What is it like as a coach building upon your legacy at Morehead State?
I think it's one knowing what that legacy is. And then for me, I can't even believe it. I'm about ready to begin my 24th year coaching. And so then it's just for me, I have to make sure that I don't have this attitude like been there, done that, because sometimes you feel like, I'll go to educational things and I'll start to kind of tap out because it's something I've already heard or it's something I've already read. And so for me, it's really continuing my education, growing as a coach, growing as an individual, and making sure that I'm able to give, 100% when I'm with my team and that I'm, helping with the credible coaching aspect. And then building a legacy, so much comes down to recruiting. Are we bringing in the right women? Are we bringing into the women that are going to buy into the culture that we have here about excelling, in our sport as well as academically, and then as well as in the community, and bringing it every day. Every day you're going to bring 100% of what you have. So it's all part of it.
What does the recruitment process look like for prospective student athletes looking to play college golf? And what are some of the things as coaches you look at in recruits?
Yeah, it's a little bit twofold because all of us, the scores are there. Like, who's good. You can pull out any ranking, you can pull up names, you can do it regionally. So who's good. But it's also a lot of us, like I'm a one-woman show on the coaching side of things, and and same with the men's coach. So when we're with our team, like we're so focused on our team, and it's very nice if the women that are interested are emailing, are texting, and they help with helping me develop a more personal relationship. Because if it's just me, there's certain times of the season that, I'm like, oh gosh, like I haven't talked to so-and-so, or I haven't sent out a mass email. And the mass emails and stuff, I think they're very generic. And I appreciate the relationship part of the recruiting process, because I want to make sure that the women that we're bringing in are going to be a good fit and also know what they're getting into. Like I said, college golf. I mean, college golf at a D1 level it's full time and then some. But the great thing is when you graduate, you'll be able to handle anything. so, so I appreciate, the text messages, the emails, the Instagram, the phone calls, reciprocating that is nice. And then from that point, it's just getting out and, for me, watching those players that I know that I'm interested in. And scores normally don't lie. Quality of schedule doesn't lie. If someone's winning events on a national level, I mean, they're a very good player. So now you're looking at, how do they handle things when they're playing well? How do they handle things when they're not playing well? What are their parents like? How do they handle their parents? So, because our sport, the parent side, like, if a lot of the parents love to go to events, and if the parents can't handle themselves, like, it can be a distraction, and not even just for that player, like for the entire team. And I think when I was younger and I didn't have kids, I didn't really have any empathy for that. And I was like, oh my gosh, these parents, they're crazy. What are they doing? Well, now we have a son that competes at a high level. And I totally get it. But you still have to manage yourself, as a parent, and you want to help your child or your prospective student athlete be in their high performance state. You don't want them to be looking over at you and just completely mortified because you're, upset or stomping around, or, I've seen parents on the ground, it's just so funny. So.
What does the official visit look like at Morehead State?
We have so many unofficial visits now because everyone is wanting to make their decisions early. But for us, when we have an official visit, mostly the emphasis is, other than most of the time, they've already seen the facilities, they've already seen the school, they've been here a couple of times. Most of the time, the official visit, the emphasis is on spending time with the team. Like, they want to get to know their teammates, and are they going to be, a good fit? Do they fit in? What do the teammates like to do? How do the teammates practice? Of course, we always go out to eat. If it's basketball season, they're going to go to a basketball game. If it's most of our recruits love volleyball. They love going to the volleyball games. And then if it's in the fall, football. So football games are fun.
Of course, as coach, what's it like seeing them come on the visit and seeing, obviously, the course that they'll be playing at for the next 4 to 5 years?
Well, yeah. So here at Morehead, we have one home course that we own, and it's nice. They can be a member there. We do venture out to Lexington and Ashland, and play some other courses. And then most of mine that are local also have access. They can bring their teammates to go play other courses. But essentially, these women, they want to see that, hey, am I going to be treated well? Do I have the facility and the resources to become a better player? And we're lucky here because we can go play whenever we want, and they're really nice to us. So,
what advice would you give those prospective student athletes that are looking to play college women's golf?
I mean, my advice is everyone has to, as a junior golfer, you have to start somewhere. So you start with your local tournaments, and then maybe you add something, whether it's a qualifier for a USGA event, or, try to play in a nationally ranked event. And then as you navigate through high school, if you're wanting to compete at that high level in college, then you have to make sure that you're playing in, more nationally ranked, bigger events, USGA events, AJGA events, the Western, the North South. And you can't really get into those events unless you're highly ranked in the other events. So that's what I mean. You have to start somewhere. And, you hate to say it's a money game, because I almost feel that way too on the pro side of things. When you talk about golf, it can be expensive. It's like going on a vacation every time you travel out of state, and we go to some really nice places, and so unfortunately there's some extra money involved, and so some kids that don't have the money, as a coach, you have to realize, well, they're only playing in local events because they don't have the money to play in national events, but yet they could still add a lot of value to some good college teams.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are looking to go from playing college golf to obviously playing in the Lpga?
I mean, this could be an entirely another hour-long conversation. But again, you have to have the resources. So when I played, and this was the mid 90s to 2000, I mean, it cost me 30 to 40,000 a year to compete. So you better have the resources. You better have some good a skill set. Yeah, I was fortunate. I had some sponsors. I was always invited to play in pro-ams. I was a good teaching professional, so I could make money that way. I also know how to make really good coffee drinks. I mean, I probably had, some a handful of jobs going on. But yeah, so you have to have the money, and then you almost have to think of it. The average player, it's going to take them about 9 years to really make it. Okay, so 9 years of $40,000 to $50,000. So now that's a pretty nice house at this point, right? So if you're not bringing in a significant amount of money through your golf and sponsorship and all, it's almost like you're probably going to have 4 or 5 years of an unpaid internship. Think of it that way. So that's the part that you have to stomach, the financial side, and then, listen to your body. Like when I think about the mistakes that I made, I was on the road sometimes 8 or 9 weeks at a time, and the travel alone, starts getting to you, and there is wear and tear, even though there's a lot of people that don't necessarily think that golf is a sport. It really is. So to listen to your body, take care of your body, and but you always feel like that 1 week is going to be your week. So that's the hardest thing for younger players, is to listen to their body and take that week off, and then just go for it. You'll have a lot of people that'll tell you you're not going to be able to make it, but just to give it your all and to go for it. So that's your dream.
What advice would you give those coaches that are looking to get into college coaching on the women's golf side?
I mean, I think, there's so many different things that people bring to coaching. So you don't necessarily have to be a great player, but you have to be in it for, you're in it for the women, and you're in it for the development of your women as individuals as well as golfers. And so understanding that, and that you have to have a plan for, our sport is very individualized. So each person is going to have a different journey, and different things that are going to help them develop into their best self, I guess is the best way to put it. So I would say some coaches are very wonderful, like their degrees are psychology and communication, or, things like that, where they can build these great connections and inspire and motivate on that level. So trying to tie in your degree, mine was more of your sport leadership, sport administration, which ended up being very helpful. But there's, I also know what my weaknesses are, and where I need to continue to grow. So that's a good thing as well. But then, probably the track now is much different than how I did it. You're rarely going to jump into coaching. So normally you're going to have a graduate, position that you want to get your name out. You want to see if your coach can help you, your college coach can help you get a graduate position, and then help with a program for a couple of years, get your master's degree, and then probably become an assistant coach, and then hopefully one day become a head coach. So.
Yes, that's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the Morehead State golf program app?
Yeah, so we're on, msueagles.com is our website. And then Twitter. I know I'm probably not as great as far as the social media and stuff because I don't know. I'm a mom and a wife. I don't have a lot of time to be on social media, but any of our links are on our webpage, so.
Thank you again, Coach Stephanie Baker, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Morehead State Women's Golf Program.
Hey, thank you. And thank you again. Good luck to you.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon. And you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Stephanie Baker, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.